Rise for flag salute. Mr. Howard, would you please lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Forrester, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions tonight. Thank you.
Right, the consent agenda has been circulated. Are there any questions or concerns? And
I move to approve the consent agenda as provided.
Second.
thank you again. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none?
I need to abstain because I wasn't here last time.
Thank you. All right, with one abstention. Appreciate that. All right, we are down to visitors' appearances and requests. Please come to the podium if you would like to speak to the council. Identify yourself by name and address. And we please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Oh.
I don't see anyone coming to the podium.
Steve, he couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Oh,
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Please.
sir, right there at the microphone,
Please.
and if you give us your name and your address. And hold it to about 3 minutes if you could, please.
Oh, it won't be that long.
Okay.
My name is Dan Glens. I'm at 352 Northeast Short Lane. Just out here by the golf course. Taxpayer, of course. So this morning I came in and I seen a bunch of homeless out in front. And I'm wondering what the city's plan is. I'd hate to see our city turn into an Oakland, San Francisco, Portland. I've seen Portland with my own eyes. So I've just seen it escalate over the last few months. That's my question. Is there a plan so we don't have that happen? I mean, because it's going to hurt our businesses. I have 2 ladies in my house, and I know that if they think there's a homeless problem, they're not shopping here. And I I don't like them spending all that gas. So anyway, that's my motivation, and hope to keep Prineville the beautiful town that it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Anyone else like to speak to the council?
Gwen Carr, and I'm here representing the Crook County Foundation. Our address is P.O. Box 1061, Prineville. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the generosity that the city and the partnership has given us through our leadership program this past year. We've used this space a number of times, and there's just been a lot of support from the staff and from the city, and we just wanted to publicly acknowledge that partnership and thank you guys for the support that you have given us.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, if you're not familiar with the program, it was a 9-month program. We started back in September. We've had 15 students or 15 participants meeting for full days every month to come in, as Gwen said, mostly here because this was a great space for us to work in and to learn all about the community and resources and challenges and become potentially our next new leaders. So we really appreciate the support from the city and all the staff and from you, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Is there anyone online? Thank you. Any messages sent to the city? Okay, all right. Then do we have any council presentations? I don't know of any. All right. Council business. Middle income revolving loan, MIRL. Public hearing. This is for information gathering, and we will not make any major decisions. However, I want this to the council to choose whether to continue the public hearing or to close it after this session, and to decide whether we want the staff to develop an ordinance with input from the county. So I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Council. Joshua Smith, Planning Director, City of Prineville. I do want to ask briefly, I do have some of the state agencies from OHCS, some representatives from OHCS on Zoom. If they could raise their hand so we can identify them, we can put you as a panelist so that you can interact with the council a little more efficiently. Looks like we have 2 of them. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, go through the presentation as I did last time. This is very similar to the presentation we did 2 weeks ago. Just mostly for the public hearing side of things so people can see it again. Go through some of the rules and then answer any questions you might have as we move. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. So as Councilor Uffelman said, this is a middle income revolving loan fund. It's a state program. It's very new. There hasn't been a community actually that has implemented a full program yet. So this is a very new program that they have developed and are slowly fixing with different bills. I think there was another bill that came out in the short session to shore up some of the things. I believe the staff report has it through Senate Bill 48. I think there was another one, 4037, that kind of had some other fixes to it, but not very substantial. So the big picture of the whole program, it's a revolving loan fund aimed at boosting housing production for moderate income individuals and families, which moderate income is 120% of AMI, area median income, and below. So 100% is kind of your standard. 80% is what they consider low income. So this would be for 120% and below. It kind of depends on how you want to set up the program or who the developer, what they want to choose. But that's the ceiling. You don't want to go any higher than that. It's intended to fill a gap funding to ensure the project feasibility at an affordable rate. So if, kind of but for funding, but for this loan, we wouldn't be able to cap these prices of the homes at the 120% of AMI. That's the whole point. And then it gets, the idea of the loan fund, the revolving part of it, is that the funding gets paid back through property taxes. Senate Bill 48 created another avenue to pay these things back. Don't really know what that would be, but you could pay it back another method. The taxing system is the one that is set up and the most appropriate, I think, that we would use in our community. But theoretically, if there's a more creative way to pay back that loan, we could do something different. The city has to be the sponsoring jurisdiction. There is an IGA with the county and the state that helps that property tax transition until the loan is repaid. So that's kind of the overall picture. Key partners, like I mentioned, OHCS runs the program. It comes out of that office of the state. Sponsoring jurisdiction is the city, or it can be a county if the project's in the county. Tax assessor, of course, they're the ones who would set the taxing up so that when they pay their taxes, it goes back to the state loan program. That IGA is with the state and the county, between the state and the county, not the city. The applicant, of course, is the developer with an eligible project, and then the fee payer is whoever is responsible taxpayer. So say this is a subdivision. You sell the home, somebody buys that home at that capped rate. That has to last for 10 years. They pay taxes like normal. Those taxes go back to the loan until it's repaid, and then the taxing system goes on like it normally does. That's kind of how that works. Project types can be any type of housing. So this is an item that the council can choose, the type of housing that can even apply for that type of funding. And right now, the ordinance is kind of set up, the draft ordinance is set up to be generic and cover all types. Affordability. So this is the whole point of the program, and what the state is trying to do is just create a different type of mechanism to help with affordable housing. Like I mentioned, Merle provides a loan to the city. The city then grants that to a developer that meets the criteria of the program that we create. That project must rent or sell for 120 of AMI or lower. That's the base requirement. I kind of put, that's what the current 120 AMI would be for a single person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. That's what you'd have to earn in order to be qualified to purchase one of these projects or homes or rent in one of these projects. So you can kind of get an idea of the income levels that it would be benefiting for. The period has to be for 10 years. So the affordability period will be for 10 years regardless of the loan duration. So that's the minimum. Now, they may only get a loan and they might pay it off in 8 years, but the affordability portion of it has to last for 10. If the loan goes past 10 years, then the affordability goes past 10 years. So if it's a 15, say it takes 15 years to pay off that loan because the project was large enough, then the affordability will carry with the loan, but it's a minimum of 10.
Josh, what would be the safeguards to assure that nothing gets overpriced?
So all the numbers are constantly moving, right? AMI is moving up, housing prices are moving up. The assurance is so that the developer is intending, this is the part we haven't quite figured out yet. This is a new program. The developer has to put together a pro forma that says we can build this, and because we can build this, we're going to bring the price of those homes down to the level where someone of a single person can afford it at that income level. Now, those income levels are going to move up over time. Prices of housing is going to move up over time. So it's going to scale. That's how it's supposed to be kept affordable. That 120% of AMI is the key to the affordability part of it. So it'll move with income.
But
But-
what happens if I go out and do a development and I have this performance, but I then decide I'm not making enough, so
Yeah.
does that fall onto the city to lease that, or?
Yes. So there is a compliance portion in your packet. There's some policies in there, and there's a compliance portion that the city would have to. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're getting into a good point of how that's going to function, and no one has tested it yet. If they get halfway through the development and they decide, man, this isn't working out for me, what do you do? I'm not sure. That's a great question for the state. If there's a foreclosure, what do you do? If the housing market completely crashes and we're in another 08 and they lose the entire project, what do you do? And these are risks associated with the
And my
program.
concern is throughout the years, a lot of these state programs, they don't provide any support in when it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And
Yeah.
I'm concerned of that falling on the city's shoulders and all that. So
And you should be. Those are some of the questions I'm hoping we would answer before we stand up the program. So we have some of assurances. Is this loan going to cause us to default if we don't pay it back? Is it going to hurt our credit rating? Is it an actual loan like a bank, or is this just kind of a side deal with the state? I don't know. Those are kind of good questions for that ultimate. So if we look at the program and say, hey, we think the program works, then we can start diving into some of the minutia of how that works and the what if scenarios.
So Josh, at this point, do you think the people that are on from the state would be able to give more clarification to the questions that Scott?
We could, if you would prefer. Does someone from the state want to kind of dive into some of those questions?
Hello, this is Jason Mackey. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
I really heard two things in the questions that were being asked. Is one, how does the city ensure that developers are charging less than 120% of AMI for rent? Ultimately, that will be the responsibility of the jurisdiction, in this case, the Prineville. It can look like several different options. We see jurisdictions around the state who partner with organizations or agencies who help them with compliance. We've seen planning staff, be kind of familiar with tracking compliance, things like annual reporting by the developer, which is a requirement of the program. But the short answer is ultimately it is the responsibility of the city to ensure that a developer is in compliance with the standards. With that being said, the state wants to be a partner. Myself, I'm joined by my colleague Austin. We're staff assigned to support jurisdictions. So we're here to support you. But I do understand, the concern. It's a valid question. So I just want to be really clear and direct. It ultimately is the responsibility of the city of Prineville to ensure compliance. The other question that I heard is, what happens in the case of non-compliance? There's several different standards. It's outlined in detail in the program manual. Maybe I won't get too far into the weeds, for this particular conversation, but I just want you to be aware that there are standards in terms of non-compliance and the steps that, may be taken in the event of non-compliance. And again, I appreciate the fact I'm just one person on a call with you all tonight. But again, the state wants to be a partner with you.
So Jason,
The event.
has OHCS kind of looked into how, if a developer decided to walk away, what happens in that scenario? Is this an actual loan that would affect our credit rating, or is it really just a side agreement that we would kind of work through?
To be completely honest with you, I'm not exactly familiar with how a default on a loan, on a MERL loan, might affect your credit rating. I am happy to follow up on that question. But again, there are specific standards around non-compliance. As you alluded to, Josh, this is a new program. We as an agency haven't been through a default. So maybe some of those finer details are a little bit unknown. But in terms of just addressing the event of non-compliance, those standards are outlined in the program manual.
Okay.
And it is possible, because the intent of the MERL program is really to empower a local jurisdiction with a lot of authority and control over the program. So if there was something you wanted to implement specifically that fit your jurisdiction in terms of ensuring compliance, that is an option for you. So let's just say, for example, you wanted to have some extra level of underwriting and you contracted out underwriting review, that is possible under the MERL program. So we have our set minimum standards as defined in the program manual. But if you as a jurisdiction wanted to decide to have a higher level of standard, that is possible.
And that's something we might be able to work through with Jared to see if there's other, like surety bonds we do for developments like subdivisions, but
Correct.
things like that.
And then, at least in my mind, to possibly complicate things is, a lot of the bigger cities have their own building department, and
Yeah.
where we don't, I know in my career here, there was times when we seen things not going the way we wanted to see them, or our requirements in the city, but the county,
Approved it anyway.
yeah. So that would be another concern.
We've got some of those things shored up with our relationship with the building. That's a lot tighter than it used to be, but
Sumner, you had a question?
yes.
I was interested in the scale of the project. Is it 100 million?
75 million for the loan program itself.
Total?
I believe so. Is that correct? 75?
There was a recent change in the 2025 legislative session. There was some funds reallocated to another program. So the total amount allocated to MERL is now 55 million. It was originally 75, but it is now 55.
So it got reduced.
Correct.
That money is set aside for rural counties.
10 million. was set aside for rural counties for, I think, their first 2 years. If no one uses it, it goes back into the pot, is how I understand that.
Correct.
So it's limited by the loan fund. It's for the whole state, right? So it's kind of first come, first serve. It goes when, if it's not successful, they may not fund it again. So we've talked a lot about limiting and project limitations within each community. That's a good idea. Maybe that's something we want to look at doing. But 55 million is probably going to limit it to quite a few communities if they actually take advantage of it.
Josh, I want to go back to the default scenario, and I'm kind of piggybacking on Counselor Janet's comments. I don't think, based on what I've read, and maybe Jason at the state can correct me, the state's not underwriting this. So if it was a $4 or $5 million loan to a developer for a project in Prineville and it failed, I think there's going to be, it would be potentially could be on the city, and we need to understand that. But I don't see anything that I've read about the Merle that the state's underwriting the loan, or guaranteeing the loan if there's a default. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason.
No, you are correct. The state is not formally
I
underwriting
think the council needs to be very sensitive to that and understand that risk associated with that. We need to get the answer to that question. And I think that's what Josh is saying. If you want to put this tool in the toolbox to have intermediate priced homes for 120% of AMI, which fills a gap, and I think that's a great ambitious thing to do. Those are some of the real critical things I think bankers like Marv and I would be very interested in, and I'm sure many of you on the council would as well, to try to figure that out, where that liability lies.
That's why we're doing these public hearings, to kind of get all these things vetted out so we can understand all the risks before we move forward. Any other questions?
One person, two person, those numbers, where did those come from? Those aren't
Straight. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. It's from Crook County, not Prineville. So it's Crook County. Comes right off the OHCS website. It's all based on so all the counties they've been using as their AMI. Yeah. And the last thing I want to understand here is that at the end of the day, if someone were to purchase this home and meet the income levels, or rent this home, and then they suddenly 2 years later they don't meet those income levels, the idea is that they wouldn't be kicked out. You can still remain in those homes. That's another feature of this. I know there's some of the lower income housings has some of those issues in cases when they don't, once they reach a certain income level, they don't qualify again. But this project would not have that same limitation. Now we just talked about a bunch of financing things, but so in the program, along with the loan, say the loan is $4 million. The city would receive that money as a loan, and we would give it out as a grant. We also receive separately 5% of $4 million that comes directly to the city to help us administer the program, and 1% of the loan, so 40,000 would go to the county assessor for them to set up all the processes they need for the revolving portion of that loan fund. So there is some money that comes with it for maintaining or
Admin.
participating into it, but it like that 5% comes to the city. We're likely going to use, as Jason talked about, someone for compliance. We're likely going to go to neighbor impact, and we've already communicated with them. Like, can you administer the income level portion for us and vet these individuals before because we don't have that function here at the city, and they do. So some of that 5% will go directly to a contract, say with a neighbor impact, to do that function for us over that 10-year period. The repayment structure, we've talked about this. That's basically the tax revenue that each individual home or the property would pay, goes back to the loan fund until it's repaid. Fire districts are exempted from that. So I do want to point that out. That is specifically in the bill. They're the only district that's exempted from that. All other taxing districts, so basically city, county parks, cemeteries, well, schools are back funded, so that wouldn't really affect them. But they would all be subject to not receiving any kind of funds from those specific properties for that 10-year period or the loan period. Once it's repaid, everything goes back to normal. The individuals renting or buying these homes don't know any different. It's only the taxing districts and things that would. Just as a comparison to other models, we see this play out in a lot of subsidized housing, nonprofit housing, Housing Works. These Thistle and Nest, Rooted Homes, they all have kind of a subsidized model where they don't pay some taxes, but that's like forever, not on a limited basis. So this is already happening somewhat in the community. It's just a different way of doing it. Implementation, this is kind of a step-by-step. So right now we're in the public hearing to look at this, pass an ordinance to establish the program. The ordinance is purposely generic so that you can pass the ordinance setting up the program, and then the policies and the agreements can be worked on separately and edited quicker than having to constantly go back and redo an ordinance. So that's why the ordinance is as generic as it is. I had some comments on that. So it'll just list we will have a compliance process, and then that process is in the policies. The application process, this has not been created yet. The application process is actually for a developer that would come forward saying they want to use that program. And then we would move through that pro forma that we talked about earlier. Can you meet these criteria? There's an entire process with OHCA. They vet them. This is where we'd probably contact Neighbor Impact to say, hey, can you do this for us? Can we get a contract moving? And then this master agreement kind of binds all that together, including the county's IGA with the assessor, and creates this master program or agreement with that specific project. I'm not entirely sure how that process works yet because we haven't really dived into that, but that's generally the gist of it.
But in that policy, you could have a default clause for the contractor.
Yes. So this is where we would try to tie in all those different things. Like if you do this, then yeah, how that looks, I need to have a financial officer like Lori or something figure that out for me. But that's where you place all those. So if you look at your packet, there's these policies in the back. There's a whole compliance portion to it. And right at the top, those are my policies. Here we go. So site approval, then you have this compliance plan. So site approval, you have this entire defining what the housing project must do. You could either put it up there or you'd probably place it under the compliance plan policy where you'd have some kind of default clause, underwriting clause, or whatever we want to put in there that says in the event of, this is the penalty. Right now, we just have the base penalties that came with the draft overview. So they have some penalties and fines in there, but that wouldn't cover any kind of major default.
Thank you.
So you get this master agreement out, deed restriction or a lien would be placed on the property. That's one compliance measure that we would have. So if someone tried to sell the property, the title company is going to pick up a lien or a deed restriction that says, hey, this has to go through a process to sell or rent. So that renting is going to be a little different. I'm not sure how that works because you don't have to go through a title company to do that, but there will be a deed restriction lien on the property itself. And then another kind of process-oriented part is the land use approval part. Right now, it's intended to be kind of separate. So the MERL program would open up and we would set our parameters and someone else would go through a subdivision or apartment complex separately, get approved, and at the same time, they'd be applying for their MERL program. But another way to do this the council would actually see the project before they put the package together. And that gets a little convoluted with approval of the land use because that goes through a different process, but that can be tied together. Right now, we were thinking of keeping the two separate and just saying if they get a land use approval, great, that can happen before or after the agreements go into place. And then as long as they meet the criteria that we set up in the program, there's no reason for us as a council to look at the actual project is kind of the intent of the way it's written up now. And so Prineville program. So if we develop our program right now, we just have the broadest possible in the ordinance. So it says 120% of or less of AMI. You have all housing types, all city. As we discussed last meeting, we talked about narrowing the type. I think there probably should be some type of number of projects allowed within the community to limit how many places actually can get this loan. Limit it to residential zones only, so we're not seeing this applied for in commercial areas. And then whatever else we might think of, underwriting programs, any kind of limitation we want to place on that. These would be the things that we would want to write into that program ordinance as hard and fast, clear and objective type criteria. And that's all I have for the council right now. We can open it up to see if anybody else has any comments from the public. Like I said, you did receive comments from the county. It's a good letter written from Will Van Vactor, the county manager, wrote that. I read through it. A lot of good comments, a lot of good points. Something to consider, council, as they look at this program. Another letter from Housing Works, just kind of a general, hey, thanks for looking at affordable housing. But those were the only two written comments that I received.
Has the city ever utilized this program before?
No, it's brand new. No one's used this program before.
And how is this different than an urban renewal?
It's very similar. It's very similar. Urban renewal, the difference is the taxes get frozen and then the increment is what gets paid back. In this situation, the entire tax amount would go back to the loan fund to repay it faster. But it works basically the same.
Josh, there's a dollar amount cap on this program.
Mhm.
So all the communities in the state of Oregon could be vying for some of these dollars at the same time and then trying to put the structure together to manage it. I'm having a real problem with the scale. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, like they already reduced the amount by 20 million. You just heard that from Jason. So it's limited even by that. There are a few, I only know of Coos Bay and Tillamook County that have actually tried to put programs together. I've heard from other communities that just aren't even going to bother because it's too complicated. So there's kind of an array of situations. So we're right at the beginning. We can either be the first one in the door or we can step back and see what happens and see if the program continues on. Maybe the only time that they run the program. Who knows?
The only way to continue on if there were more money put into it.
Well, I mean, so the idea is I think they're testing the waters, trying to see if this program, because they keep literally there's been 3 bills to kind of update this thing so far. They created it and then 2 bills have already tried to fix portions of it. So I think they're going to find out that all these questions that you're coming up with are kind of making people pump the brakes, and maybe they need to go back and revisit the program and see if people aren't going to utilize it. If it never gets utilized, then maybe it's not the fact that we didn't have enough money, it's that it just wasn't able to put it together. If it's successful, they might keep adding to it. And then you can see, because this is every session, right? They would refund it, and eventually that loan fund could get larger. It's all whether the legislature wants to keep it moving is how it would go. But yeah, 55 million can go fast. And so that's where if you're the first one in, you might take advantage and you get your project done and others won't. Or we can step back and see how it works first. But
Okay. Are there any other questions for Josh?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm just opening the floor to anybody else who wants to
Any
comment.
statements? Are there any statements from the folks online they want to add to the comments that were presented by Mr. Smith?
Jason, that was directed at you, I think. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Thank you. Just thank you, Josh. I mean, you have a clear understanding of the program. One clarification I would like to make is there are 4 jurisdictions across the state who have adopted an ordinance. It's Tillamook County, the city of Coos Bay, the city of Riddle, and the city of Boardman. Tillamook County is the furthest along. They've actually received a project application that's under review. And I did also want to just clarify one other theme of this conversation. And it's not intended to put any pressure on anybody. I want the council to feel like they're fully informed. But the adoption of the ordinance is really the first step in a process of several steps. Really, it's just showing an intent to adopt the program. After the ordinance is passed, a process on the OHCS side starts where a master agreement is drafted, and the city enters into that master agreement. So there's several kind of like a review. It's typical for the city attorney to review that. Sometimes there's some back and forth with DOJ. So it's really another step to kind of like further refine the requirements, the technical details of the program. And then from there, each project is also then reviewed by the city, including elected officials. So once you have the ordinance passed, you've entered into a master agreement, you have your IGAs in place, that then makes it available for developers to request funds. And then they will submit an application based on the way that you want to create an application process, the standards involved for them to submit that application. And then that application gets reviewed again by council and is reviewed and approved. There's no requirement on the OHCS side that council approves an application submitted by a developer. So if a developer comes in and there's any questions about financial feasibility or some other type of concern, maybe land use has not been approved, the council is empowered to not approve an application. So my intent of just kind of calling that out is this first step of an ordinance is just one step. It doesn't mean that a developer can just come in and have access to the money. There's still several steps along the way before that would happen, and staff and elected officials have another chance to do several steps of review of the program and also the project. So just wanted to call out this ordinance step is not intended to be the final end all be all of decisions by council, but also happy to help add any clarity to any other discussion point, or if there's any further questions, happy to chat through them.
How close is the median income going to be monitored in the program? Because I understand that people could actually qualify for a normal loan and not be looking for something like this to their advantage because of the rate or lack thereof. So I guess I'm curious who is making sure, because as incomes rise, they may go out of that median, and what happens then?
Well, so Marvin, clarification, the loan is to the developer, not the individual. Are you thinking an individual would get a loan?
On median income, right? And it's at 87,000, I think, for a two-person.
The individual buys the home or rents the place on their own accord. If they need a loan to buy the house, that's their own loan. This loan is to the developer to build the project.
This goes back to the developer.
Yeah, this goes directly to the developer as a grant. The individual buying the home, if it's the difference between paying $400,000 for a home and $330,000, they still need to get their own loan for that $330,000. It's not helping the individual. It's helping the individual by bringing the cost of that house down, and then holding those homes for people that meet the income criteria. So someone can't just come in and buy them all up. They have to meet the income requirements. But they also still have to be able to get a loan from a bank to buy the house. It's not a giveaway. It's kind of a thing. You have anything to add, Jason?
No, that's correct. If I understand the question correctly, the loan is to the developer who's going to be constructing the rental housing or homeownership project.
Did you have a different question, Marv? Was that
Have to digest it a bit.
okay?
So does the city then in this ordinance or agreement have any kind of impact or say in sales price of the homes? I mean, they're supposed to be more
That's where you,
affordable, right?
that's where you would set that percentage. So you can
we
set it.
set that and the developer has to follow
Yes.
those guidelines.
So 120 is the
Mhm.
the maximum you can choose. You can't choose 140. It has to be that or below.
Right.
You may choose 80. I don't think anybody would take advantage of the system at 80 because that's impossible to make your money back. But that's your choice when you set up the program to what income level you want to target. 120% is just kind of that, what the state is saying, you have to at least do this.
So Jason, you said there's 55 million statewide, 10 million for rural areas. And the areas that you indicated that have some interest in it are all rural areas. So do you think some of that 55 million statewide, you didn't say anything about other areas besides rural areas being interested in it. You think some of that money could also add into the 10 million if there's enough people that want to try it, put an effort into it?
Thank you for that question because it is a bit complicated. As Josh mentioned, there's been a couple of revisions to the original legislation that have impacted that set aside amount. The only two actual, by definition, rural jurisdictions would be City of Boardman and City of Riddle. And even that definition has changed slightly in Senate Bill 48. I will call out that the set aside amount for rural counties as originally defined in House Bill 1537, the original iteration of MERL, was only for 2 years. And then after that 2 years, it would just become a general fund. I don't have that exact date defined at this moment. It's a question that I'm going to get a specific answer to, but it's coming up.
So to answer that, clarify that question, Jason, the 10 million set aside for rural was so that larger cities couldn't take it all. But I don't think it works in reverse. I think rural cities they can look at the entire pot, can't they?
Yes, that is correct. I guess what I'm suggesting is that the period of time where there is a set aside for rural that urban jurisdictions would not have access to is closely about to expire. So, for the sake of this conversation, and I'm happy to follow up with that specific date, it would probably best to think about it in terms of there not being a rural set aside.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in this public hearing? Yes.
My question is, what is an AMI?
I'll add, okay. So I have a question of what's an AMI. It's an area median income. So you take your area and it's not an average, it's a median. So an average can spike up and down. It's you take the median and it draws a line. So every county, the whole county, you look at employment data, look at their income, and you create this AMI. So if you use the average, we would actually be pretty high. But that's to keep it down and to say that at this level, it's affordable. So when you look at affordable housing, like Housing Works creates those apartments and things that people rent to, they have to meet an 80% of the area median income. And it's just a way, it's a tool to basically sort people out to make them eligible. Yep. Yep.
And you would make that better. You would say, okay, instead of 25% down, you only need 15%.
Yeah, and so like the target that HUD, basically is trying to always hit is that you don't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. That's always been kind of that target area, and that's what we're trying to hit. It gets a little convoluted when you keep saying the 120% of AMI, but it's 30% of this, and that's 100% of AMI is basically 30% of your income going to housing.
And
Is
the
how
AMI is set by the state, not the city.
well, it's a calculation, but yeah, I
Right,
mean,
but it's not.
correct. We don't do our own. We don't do our own.
What
Yeah.
that AMI is.
Correct.
Julie Thompson, and I just have a couple questions. I won't be very long tonight. So Josh answered a whole bunch of my questions, so thank you for that. I guess the first one is like, I did go to the county work session where this was brought up. And there was a developer there who was interested in doing it. And from the sounds of it, the county had a lot of questions about it and didn't sound like they were super interested in it. We're supposed to come back to it. So my question is this, is if the city decides to do this, does the county have to accept that, or does it then have to go back to the county again?
So I did clarify this a couple times and actually this morning with OHCS. The county has to do an IGA with the state, but they are, intergovernmental agreement
Okay, gotcha.
with the state.
Okay.
They are obligated to do it. They can work on the language,
Thanks.
but they are obligated to enter into that agreement to basically to process, because they are the assessor, they are the tax collector, to process those payments and make sure they go back to the loan fund.
Okay, perfect. And then as I was listening to you talk about, in the contract, so to speak, there are penalties and fines that if, something falls apart, that these fees or fines have to be paid. But I guess that's kind of concerning to me because, I mean, if it falls apart, obviously there's no money. So how do you collect those fines or fees, I guess? I mean, having it in writing is one thing, but paying legal fees to try to get it is a whole nother deal. So,
Yeah, that's
Trying to get blood out of a turnip.
right. There you go. Yeah. So that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked in the development industry for 10 years and I listened to this whole thing. I don't understand one bit of it. So
it
take
took
that
me a
for-
while too.
take that for what you will.
It's it's an easy concept, but in practice, it is not simple.
Josh, I have a question to add on to Julie's. So I think at one point you said that there's some securities that we could use, like a surety bond for the developer to have them, put.
Yes,
something like
Jason
that.
mentioned that. So you could do something like that.
way if people belly up or they don't follow through with it, then you've got that you can fall back on.
Correct. It's very similar to what we do for subdivision development. So somebody comes in to do a subdivision, they can either build all the infrastructure on their own property without going out to bond. And if they default, well, then they have their own property with roads on it. If they want to, say, get their lots and start selling their lots before the infrastructure's in, then the city requires them to bond for those things, because we're not going to let them sell a lot and then walk away with their money and not finish the subdivision. And that'd be very similar. Theoretically, we could do that and they would bond for their infrastructure improvements. So at the end of the day, if they walked away, we still do have a subdivision to sell and we have an asset.
You got to be careful though, because this is amazing to me to have this conversation, because if we put the bond on the developer, as you say, Janet, to give us zero risk, it just raises the price. Nothing like that's for free. They're very, very expensive and the thresholds are incredible. So so then you defeat the purpose of the whole Merle project. So we have to be sensible and really do our homework, which we have a lot more to go, in my opinion. So I think it's always great to have a tool like this in the toolbox to fill that housing gap wherever we can. But I think we have, as Josh has pointed out, a lot of and the gentleman in the audience, we have a lot of unanswered questions.
And a fairly expensive process to go through to
Could be.
create it.
Yeah.
Is there anyone online that would like to speak to the council? No one online wants to speak to the council. Well, I guess at this point, the question that I would have is that, does the council want to close the public hearing? And does the council want to have the staff develop an ordinance or work with the county in
Develop an ordinance for consideration. The framework of an ordinance is what
Yeah,
you're asking for.
framework
Yeah.
for the ordinance? So I'll ask first, you,
Mr. President, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
okay,
I'll second.
been moved and seconded. All in favor of closing the
Does this
public?
mean we're moving straight to an ordinance?
No, it just means you won't take any more. I mean, granted, anybody can give you input at any council meeting, but you're closing it to kind of that. And you can leave it open if you want to get more comments, right? You would close the hearing if you don't want to have this again. You're not actually doing anything. You'll then discuss the ordinance as a council. You can go out and talk to people all you want. You can do all those things. This isn't like a land use hearing or anything. It's just, you're basically saying, we've got enough input to move forward. And we know the questions we need to ask, so we don't need to have another public hearing and advertise another public hearing.
Kind of disappointed in public input. I feel like there's more people out there that would really want to be involved in this and kind of sorry, they're not missing out. So, but on the other hand, I don't know if we have another public hearing, if we're really going to get any more traction out of it. So
But we still have a lot of hoops to go through.
absolutely. Yeah. And yep.
Yeah, let's move forward.
Okay.
So, any other questions about closing the public hearing? All right, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. And next question is, do you want staff to develop an ordinance in all probability with input from the county? Because we do have input from the county already. We have input from Housing Works. And we have had a couple of comments from the community.
And what I basically gleaned from this, some of the stuff in the county's letter, we are addressing in those limitations we talked about. I guess some of the questions I would have is, does the council want to limit the type of housing? Do they want to limit how many projects can be in the community? Do they want to restrict it to residential zoning? That gets that kind of number one point on the county's comments.
Well, as I mentioned in the last meeting, I would be in favor of limiting the type of housing to single family dwellings only, not apartments, not duplexes, triplexes, or anything of that nature. I think getting people into home ownership also creates affordability on the back end. When you look at the specific type of folks that are going to be eligible for this program, I would say it's fair to assume a fair amount of them are probably renting apartments, single-family homes in town. If they move into home ownership, it creates avenues for more people maybe that make a little less money. It opens up the rent market, I guess is what I'm saying. I wouldn't want to see this project go towards just more rentals, I guess is what I'm saying.
So what I'm hearing from you then, Shane, is that you don't want the property to be sold or a project to be sold for an investor who
Correct.
qualifies, but he's going to turn around and rent the property out.
Correct. And I would also add that they be owner occupied for the duration of the loan.
That was my next question. That's a question I've had for OHCS as well, is
Mhm.
If someone purchases the property, now life changes sometimes and you got to move, and you either have to sell it to someone else of that same nature, or can you actually rent the house you just bought and use the program for it?
Exactly. And yeah, no, I wouldn't want that.
Don't we need to make a decision on whether we want staff to develop an ordinance? or
I think
not?
what Josh.
I'm just trying to get some of these elements out to develop that
Yeah,
ordinance.
I think you need to have a workshop, council.
Right.
I think, yeah, there's 4,000 questions that you guys need to go through. But if Josh has some tonight, he needs to get clarification on. That's up to you whether you want to give him that or not.
And we can just put options in there. And I also need to talk to Jared, because as Jason said, the ordinance is just a small piece of it that stands up the program. Maybe a lot of these things can be worked out in the back end on the policy situation,
So I think.
because you
kinda
still have to
going back-
approve it.
Kind of go back from a staff perspective, and Council President Alphaman asked the question. I think the question could be simplified somewhat in that, would the council like to direct staff to continue to develop a draft ordinance for your review as we go forward with the many steps as Jason from OHCS spoke to. So I think that's the question that you, and I assume we would probably, Lisa would probably need a vote for that, just to be on the safe side.
And as Mr. Glenn said, this is a convoluted project.
Yeah.
And at best, and it's going to take time,
I think
Many questions.
a lot of work.
yeah,
to,
key, I think
evolve.
the key word, Steve, is a draft resolution for the council's review. We can do that many times, or as many times, I should
Right.
say, we can do that as many times as needed to get to where you green light, red light program.
Okay,
So I really like the idea of a workshop, because I think there's so much into this that just having the planning department, Josh, you bring an ordinance to us without us having a lot of input in it, it would take less time if we had a workshop to be able to assist in developing it and give you some of the criteria that we might
Yep.
want, that we don't know today. That
I'll give you some time to absorb it and think about it. Yeah.
and we don't
we
need to
can-
make a decision
can do that.
tonight on whether we do or do not
Yeah,
want to have the ordinance.
Yeah, council could review a draft next week, for example. I'm not saying that we'll do that, but the next meeting, and say, okay, here's some changes and we'd like to do a workshop.
Right.
So I think let's see where staff can get. But again, we'd like to get a nod or a vote in this case to direct staff to continue to work on a draft ordinance for the MIRL project. Correct, Josh? You in agreement with that?
They don't have to vote, but it's
Yeah, I don't think we
perfectly
have to
fine
vote.
if you want to do it. It's not a decision
Lisa,
that
do
you're
you think we
making.
need to vote, or do we need just a head nod? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing from the council?
Continue to move forward, staff.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to explore it more, but I'm not committing to it.
Me
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And well, yeah, this is not a commitment at all. And we really need to get to
Yeah.
the basis of the risk.
Staff continue to work toward
Right.
a draft ordinance.
It's more meat and potatoes,
Yep, there you go.
nuts and bolts, if you will.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, all right.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Well, I have one more comment. I mean, Shane, you said you wanted it to be single housing. I don't know as if I'm committing to it being single housing. Because we don't, I mean, that new one, that Thistle and Ness is the first affordable housing, I think, that we have in Prineville.
Oh, no.
No, what's the other
Um,
ones?
Housing Works has like 4 other projects.
But those are low income, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I see what you mean. So
You know, that's the only affordable housing. So in my mind, I would like to see it more open instead of just narrowed down.
And they're doing it as this gets into another element. What if it's done as a condo and you're actually selling the home but not the land? Does
Right.
that count? Is that single family? No.
And I know in my neighborhood, we have across the street, there are some duplexes that have a 0 lot line, and
Those are technically single family, yeah.
they are technically.
They're
single
townhomes. Yeah.
Townhomes are
Owner occupied.
single family.
Yeah.
Correct.
So those are little nuances that we would have to,
So there are a lot of questions, a
Yeah.
lot of things to look at. So thank you, Mr. Smith, if you will move that forward, we would appreciate it, and then we can have a workshop down the road when it's ready to discuss. Thank you. All right. Moving on, staff reports and requests, Mr. Forrester, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Effelman. Appreciate it. Starting out with public safety tonight on the city manager update. Well, PD is currently going through its deadly force policy update as required by law. This is an update that happens periodically. We have a couple of candidates, so we're moving to the next step of the executive interview process. Shane did inform me this afternoon prior to this meeting that he did interview a lateral officer candidate and made a conditional offer this afternoon. So that has gone well. A recent Facebook post for the PD has gone viral with over 3 million views regarding an eight-legged trespasser at the police department. I think it's arachnophobia is what we're talking about there. And the dispatch's newest call taker graduates are wrapping up their medical training and will be on the move to the simulator here shortly. On the public works side, we're super busy as we can all see down on Main Street and other areas around town. Our contractor McKernan is doing a great job and moving very quickly on the Fairmont project. So we should have that buttoned up in the next couple weeks. Railroad's been very busy and still recruiting for 2 positions at the warehouse. We did get a good number of interested parties apply, so we have a pretty good pool to work on. In Carrie's absence, Lori and her team, along with Casey and I and Lori, are going to start going through those and get a head start on getting through some of those applications for Matt to review. We have another potential customer that Matt has developed that could account for 24 extra cars per month for the geothermal facility between Redmond and Bend. It won't be a long-term bump in the business, but 24 cars a month is 24 cars a month. We're glad to have them. On the Meadow Lake side, Zach Lambert is reporting good revenues for the golf course with all the big group activities he's had lately. The Hunter Holmes tournament had 150 golfers signed up, and Meadow Lakes will also be hosting the boys and girls regional golf tournaments here shortly. And also here on the 18th and 19th of this month, we'll be doing some aeration maintenance on the course, which causes a little bit of discernment amongst golfers, but we'll get through it. On the planning side, Josh is keeping pretty busy with some applications for some subdivisions. And of course, as we have talked about tonight, some affordable housing development on incentive programs. On the IT side, the interview rooms up at the police department have now been upgraded with the Axon technology. And this is the being able to record and video and voice and have a clean record of that. And then also the new Barnes Butte communication site is having ground prep work done to install tower equipment. Again, that's just to shore up radio communications in all aspects of our community. Also, the new city website will be going live soon. I know Lisa worked on that with Ryan from IT, and she says it's going to be great once we learn how to use it. From our finance team, Lori and her gang, the midterm audit process is about to get underway, and we'll be hearing from Lori a little bit later on this evening with quarterly financial report. And on the public relations side, we've been working with Sean Ray and both the PD website and our city website, doing some wildfire safety tips as we anticipate what could be a pretty tough fire season here in Central Oregon this year. On the economic development strategic work that Caroline Irving is responsible for, we're getting word from Caroline that the Community Paths Grant is confirmed with additional funding received for the GAP, meaning that the Lynn Boulevard off-street pedestrian path will require a match of 10.72%. Typically, it's much higher than that, more than double in some cases on the city side, which will be very helpful. And we're expected to receive that funding in 2028 with construction to begin in 2030. So that'll be a nice upgrade down there. Scott, I know that's near and dear to your heart to get some of those pedestrian safety measures in. And then finally, Russ DeBoot from the fire department reports that Jack Stubblefield has been promoted to lieutenant. And also by the time of this report, which came out yesterday, as the Oregon Department of Forestry has already declared fire season, which will include Crook County, and the fire department will be working on education for residents on what we can and cannot do during the fire season. Of course, we'll be coordinating with them on our social media platforms. That concludes my report. Are there any questions from the council tonight?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there any council reports? I have one. Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't forget Lori.
I
forget Lori.
Man. Oh, then I just about got walked upside the head on that.
We have no money.
That's not even funny.
Apologies.
Good evening, Council. Lori Hooper Antrim, City Finance Director for the record. I'm here to give you your third quarter report. This presentation summarizes the City of Prineville's unaudited financial performance through the third quarter of fiscal year 26, ending March 31st. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Maybe.
I'm going to go to manual.
Josh, was this working for you? I guess. What did I do? That's what I did. Okay. All right. At the citywide level, total fund balances increased by approximately $3.5 million or 12% through the third quarter. Funds contributing most significantly to the increase include the general fund, transportation fund, water and wastewater SDC funds, and the buildings facility fund. Funds with notable decreases in fund balance during the quarter included emergency dispatch, primarily due to expenditures associated with the radio expansion project, and the PERS pension obligation bond fund, reflecting the establishment of a new PERS side account to reduce the city's unfunded actuarial liability. Are there questions before I move on to the general fund? The general fund continues to serve as a strong financial anchor for the city. Through the third quarter, general fund revenues total approximately $12.5 million, representing 90% of the annual budget. The fund balance increased by $1.8 million or 17%, positioning the city well as we enter into the fourth quarter. Property taxes are roughly 104% of the annual budget, and overall franchise fees are 83%. Overall expenditures are 45% of the budget, with police expenditures through the third quarter at 76% or $7.8 million. Property tax collections remain strong and continue to trend upward. Through the third quarter, property tax revenues total approximately $3.1 million, and this reflects continued growth in assessed value and strong collection performance. Delinquent property tax collection came in at $64,000 through the third quarter, which is roughly flat compared to the prior year. Franchise fees revenues continue to be a significant driver for the general fund's performance. Electrical franchise fees have increased roughly $1.4 million over the prior year quarter end, ending at $7.5 million. Growth is primarily attributable to increased electrical consumption from fully populated data centers, along with system-wide rate adjustments. Franchise fee collection for natural gas is down in comparison to the prior year, ending at roughly $110,000, and cable TV is also down, coming in at $31,000. Transient lodging tax collection remains steady, with revenues up approximately 5% compared to the prior year. Through the third quarter, collections total roughly $373,000, reflecting continued stability in local lodging activity and tourism-related travel. Are there questions about the general fund? The transportation fund's revenues are approximately 73% of the annual budget, while expenditures are only 33%, largely due to the timing of construction and maintenance projects. As a result, the transportation fund balance increased 107% through the third quarter. State shared gas tax revenues are up approximately 15% over the prior year, totaling $728,000 through the third quarter. This increase is contributing positively to the transportation fund and supports upcoming street preservation and capital projects planned for late FY26 into FY27. Are there questions about the transportation fund? Moving on to the railroad fund, railroad charges for services are $347,000 or 84% of the annual budget. Freight depot charges for services totaled $472,000 or 87% of the budget. $400,000 was transferred to support the matching funds for the Chrissy grant in the third quarter. The total expenditures are 24% at quarter end, and materials and services may require a budget adjustment prior to the end of the biennium due to the derailment and the fire that took place last summer. Fund balance increased through the third quarter 32%. Charges for services for both rail operations and the freight depot remain strong. Railroad charges for services trends show an increase over the prior year of roughly $50,000 through the third quarter. Freight depot charges for services are up roughly $52,000 in comparison to the prior year, and freight volumes have increased by 84 cars compared to last year, driven largely by the new barley commodity, which now represents approximately 35% of total haulage through the third quarter. The profits and loss statement reflects positive operating results in 2 of 3 of the months, resulting in an operating profit of approximately $8,000 for the third quarter and cumulatively year-to-date profit of $153,000. Are there questions about the railroad fund? Up next is golf. Golf revenue through the third quarter is 80% of the annual budget, and overall revenue is 80% of the budget. Expenditures are tracking at 54% of budget, with each of the departments tracking at or below their annual allocations. Fund balance increased 4% or $47,000, with over $182,000 in capital expenditures through the third quarter. Charges for services are up in all major categories over the prior year. Rounds of play increased approximately 5,400 rounds compared to the prior year, with 8 of the 9 first months of the fiscal year setting monthly participation records. Golf operational revenues are up 32%, driven by daily play, cart rentals, and pro shop sales. Profit and loss statement of operations show a loss in February and a profit in January and March, with a third quarter profit of $78,000 and year-to-date profits through the third quarter of $239,000. Are there questions about the golf course? That was your quarterly report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Good numbers. All right. Moving on. Council reports. Any? I do have one, and that is, I don't know how many of you have taken the opportunity to go to a viewing at the observatory, the Barnes Butte Observatory. This coming Friday and Saturday evening at 8:45, we will have an astronomer up there, and the telescopes will be out. And there will be an opportunity for the whole community to come up and enjoy utilizing the observatory and seeing what the skies present. Now, of course, if it turns out to be a rainy night and clouds cover the skies, then obviously it'll get postponed. But
What day was that?
That's this coming Friday and this coming Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday at 8:45.
Cool.
Right? That's all I had to report. Okay, moving on. There are no resolutions. It's an opportunity for visitors' appearances and requests. If anyone would like to speak to the council, this is your opportunity. Anyone online? No one online. Well, since we're all out of things to talk about, is someone willing to make a motion to adjourn?
We'll move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all for attending tonight.